Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another China How It Is. Today I'm going to be talking about jobs for foreigners. I've been getting a lot of messages and on YouTube and Facebook, etc., asking me. Usually it starts out with, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, I have a degree or I'm studying this in college, etc. What kind of a job can I get in China? How can I get a job in China?" Well, I'm going to break it down for you as clear and simple as I possibly can as to what kind of jobs foreigners can get in China and what sort of qualifications you need. Alright, so let's first of all start out with something important to know. Alright, sorry about doing all the recording in the car, I've just been a bit busy. Anyway, first thing I want you to know is that Chinese people that live in the cities like in Shenzhen are incredibly well educated. By that I mean a huge majority of them have degrees, and I'd say a very high percentage of those people that have degrees also have master's degrees. I know it sounds strange, but because of the huge population here in China, there's fierce competition for jobs. It's so fierce to the point where education is sort of the most important thing in a child's life. Parents will basically almost sacrifice a childhood, the child's childhood, in order for them to have a good education. So they study all the time on the weekends, after school, during holidays. So basically, children are being brought up that way these days, studying a lot. And this does have some negative impacts on creativity, which is something I'm going to talk about shortly as well. But the gist of it is that you've got a whole lot of seriously highly qualified people, and the salaries that they earn, these highly qualified people, are very low compared to Western standards. So you'll have somebody with let's say a master's degree, or some very, very highly educated person sort of earning less than what a waiter or sort of someone working at McDonald's would earn in America, for instance. So
okay, let me get back to it. What is the fact that the people living in the cities in the big cities of China have a very high education? What does that have to do with you if you were coming to look for a job? Well, let me put it to you this way. There are no shortage of skills in China. In fact, these people living here are incredibly capable. You've got incredibly good programmers, incredibly good engineers, incredibly good finance people. You've got, you name it, they've got it. Guys with master's degrees, and by the dozen, by the hundreds, by the thousands even. They're everywhere. Okay, and China has this policy, and I think most countries have this, where if a local person can do a job, they will not give the job, they won't give a working permit to a foreigner who can do the same job, which to me makes a lot of sense. So, for instance, if you've got a programmer, for instance, if you're a programmer and you come here and you apply for a job, unless you are incredibly skilled in a very specific area that the Chinese people can't do, you're not going to get the permission to work, you won't get the work permit. I learned this the hard way, this whole situation myself coming here. You see, my skills lie in IT. I'm a big IT guy, and I used to run a small sort of IT consulting company. It was definitely not successful, but it ran anyway. And I used to, drive around to different companies and set up networks and fix problems and whatnot. Anything to do with computers and networks, IT. And I was an IT administrator before. Anyway, don't need to get into that nonsense. Basically, I came to China thinking that I could find some sort of work in IT. Boy, was I wrong. Okay, first of all, the language barrier is huge. So what good is a guy trying to fix systems and whatnot when he can't even speak the language to the people. Second of all, computer literacy is very high here in China. You don't have a problem with computer literacy, and as a result, there isn't really a need for, say for instance, support technicians or, that kind of thing. Furthermore, you have a situation where if someone has a problem with their network, say, or their computers, they'll call some guy in who will just come and do it for like, I don't know, nothing, for free, or for like 20 RMB or something, come and fix the problems. And you can take your computer to any little shop in these crappy villages around here. You'll find them all over, computer shops, and they'll sort of fix it. No, they'll only charge you for parts that they use, so they don't charge any labor, any consulting fees, etc. So basically, there is no market for an IT person like myself here at all. It's just does not exist. And that goes for, you see there's a little computer shop. That goes for just about every different profession you can think of. Basically, if you are a qualified, whatever you are, I don't know, if you're a qualified bookkeeper and you come here, you're not going to find a job because, first of all, language barrier, you can't read the Chinese documents, you can't speak Chinese, and second of all, you wouldn't be allowed to get the job anyway. They wouldn't give you the work permit because you'd be taking a job away from a local person. And as you know, there's just such a huge population density that the country couldn't afford to be giving their jobs away to foreigners. So, what I'm trying to say here is forget about your current career path. You may have been working in a certain field for X amount of time, but there's probably no chance that you'll get a job doing that here in China. So, I suppose you're curious as to what kind of jobs you would be able to get if you came to China. Well, it's quite simple. The jobs that foreigners are allowed to get and the jobs that are available to foreigners are jobs that the local people can't do. So, let's go through them, shall we? Of course, the number one job that, and I'll be honest with you, 98 or 99% of the foreigners that I know in China teach English. Okay. And the reason for that is, basically, no local Chinese person can speak English and understand English as well as a native English speaker. And what actually happens is, if you get a legitimate work visa teaching English, you will receive something, it's a little book, and it's called a Foreign Experts Certificate. So you actually are classified as a foreign expert, as in, you can do something that a local person cannot do. Alright. So that might put things into perspective for you, and that's why English teaching is so big here, because it's actually one of the only jobs foreigners can really do. Alright, so other than English teaching, what are your options? Well, basically anything that a local Chinese person can't do. Okay. And that isn't a hell of a lot, to be honest, because, like I said, they are very well educated and also very capable people. So it has to be quite specialist. Now, I know, for instance, some people who work in hotels. Look at all this dust, it's horrible. Anyway, yeah, he feels it too, so does she. Stupid quarry. Okay, what these guys do in the hotels is they look after the foreign guests who come there, and they also train the staff, train them how to deal with foreigners, and also teach the staff English. I know that creative companies, things like advertising agencies or design houses, things like that, they prefer to hire foreign talent because foreigners tend to be more creative than the local Chinese people. There's a theory behind that, and well, I'm going to tell you what the theory is, and it goes something along the lines of this. In the West, when we're kids, when we're in kindergarten, we're messing around with colors and shapes and finger painting and playing games and singing songs. Whereas in China, in kindergarten, the children are studying, and I'm not joking here, they're studying pretty advanced mathematics, learning how to write Chinese characters, learning English, and then on the side they're learning how to play piano, and doing extra studies in science or whatever they're doing, but basically they are doing a lot. So basically that's what you're dealing with, is you're dealing with the children not really having a childhood, as I was saying earlier, just studying all the time, and they become very capable, very well educated, but lack creativity because they didn't have time to develop their creativity. So this doesn't mean that you don't get creative people, they're just not as practiced at being creative as Western people usually are. Jeez, that's loud. Okay. So, you probably have a good shot if you're in the creative fields. If you are going to teach English, yes, you are more or less guaranteed a job. As long as you're willing to stick it out, because it's not as easy as you think. I've done some of it before. When I first got here, it's part of my big story, which I'll get into. But teaching English is not as easy as it sounds. Anyone who's ever done it will understand. You've got that as an option. And of course, the big one, which I'm now going to tell you, is if you come as part of a company. So, if you are working for a big company that has branches here in China, then you can usually get work, working as a manager or some other form of staff for that company, right? So that's a big opportunity there. If you wanted to try and follow your career path, if you wanted to try to follow your career path, or if you wanted to stick to something familiar, then you could try to get a job at a company that has branches here, and then just ask them if you could transfer over here. And I'm quite sure that there are situations where the government would issue the permit for you to work here, based on the fact that you work for that company, etc. So that's your other option. Now, there is another question that I've been asked in relation to work, and that is what sort of degree a person should have to come to work here. What should they study? You can study whatever you want, as long as you have a bachelor's degree. Now, why do you need a bachelor's degree? Well, it's a requirement by the Chinese government. If you want to get a work visa or working permit, you need a bachelor's degree. Otherwise, they will not issue one to you. For instance, I have a very good friend who has a bachelor's in, I think, tourism management or hotel management or something, but he's an IELTS examiner for the British Council. So, it really doesn't matter what your degree is as long as you have one. Of course, you can work illegally. A lot of people do, but that comes with a whole lot of risks, and it's not something that I would really suggest. Unless you're kind of desperate. I'll get into that at another time. For now, I'm just talking about jobs that you can and probably should get.我要7个红色的玫瑰。我要7个红色的玫瑰。7个，对。See other guys that have nodded no? That's one thing I'd like you guys to check it out. I said hello to him, and he shook his head no. In other words, just not interested. He doesn't even know what I want. I want to buy some roses for Beer Girl. Anyway, ridiculous. I'll explain to you a little bit about that on my way out of here. How am I gonna carry those bloody things? By the way, I love this drift. It looks so cool. 多少钱？20块，25，好。
我现在你可以卖的贵一点，现在通过你买了好多次了。
嗯，
现在拉风景，
好，谢谢谢谢。See now he recognizes me.
卖你这个价钱。
好，
好久没过来了。
对对对，我最近很忙。啊，谢谢。嗯。Maybe he doesn't recognize the bike. Oh yeah.
谢谢。
啊，不用谢，谢谢你啊。Okay. See if I can just stick them in my jacket. Well, what do you know? Hope they don't get in the way too much. Hey, come on, zip up, damn it. Give me a second here. I don't have a backpack or anything, so yeah, gee, that really is in the way. Well, it shouldn't stop me explaining things anyway. 谢谢，再见啊。好。That is a big problem. If you're a foreigner, that's what you're going to get. You see, I went up to him and I said hello, and he just said no, and he waved me off. That happens with everything, I promise you. When you first get here, you want to go buy something. Oh, gee, I ran into that everywhere I went. I wanted to get a phone card, or I wanted to ask for directions or anything. They just don't want the hassle. But then you see how he changed after I said I want to buy something and I spoke Chinese, then suddenly he's responsive. So expect to come across that sort of nonsense when you get here. It's going to happen. Hey, 你好。哦，你好。250啊。250。是。多少钱买的？我自己做的啊。
Let's quickly talk about salaries for a minute here. I know a lot of you ask me this. How much can you earn? Well, I'll tell you from experience, what my friends earn and what I've earned in the past. Basically, if you're going to be an English teacher, which is probably 90% of you who are going to come here, you can expect a starting salary in a big city of about 10,000 renminbi. If you work for one of the bigger companies, you might get 12,000 as your starting salary, if you're lucky. And it seems to have...
It just shows you how prepared I really am, hey? My battery just ran out on my camera. Anyway, what I was saying is about 10,000 to 12,000 starting salary. The ceiling seems to be around about 16,000 if you put in a lot of work, that's working a lot of extra hours and, working for a long time for the same place. I mean, I've had friends who've reached that high. I don't think it's really possible to earn much more as an English teacher than that, but that is still, if you're living in China, that is a huge amount of money. Cost of living is so low here that if you're earning that amount of money, you can basically just live like a king. I've had friends who've been interns here at big companies, like for instance a German friend of mine who started who was working for Siemens Nixdorf, and he came here and he was earning something like 8,000 a month. So depending on your position in your company and depending on the company you work for, your salary is obviously going to vary. So I mean, you might start off with something quite low, like for instance that guy who is very qualified. He was earning less than a kindergarten teacher. But yes, it all depends. I myself, I'm a consultant, so I have an hourly rate, so it depends on where I go and the company that I work for. I negotiate different deals with different companies, so that's entirely up to me. And I don't have a salary. My income varies greatly depending on the month, and for instance, times like this when there are a lot of holidays, etc., I might earn nothing or very little in a month. But then when times are good, then I'll earn more. So that's just the risk of doing consulting sort of work. Anyway, I think that sums everything up, right? Let's just quickly go through it again. If you want to work legally here, you need to have a degree, and there is also some kind of rule about you have to have been born before 1982, I think, or 1980 something. Because they
obviously know that you would have to have finished school and done a 4-year degree course. So if you come there with a degree, well, if you come there saying you have a degree, but you're sort of 19 years old, they know you're lying. So you know there's an age limit as well. But yeah, you just need a bachelor's degree, and the company you work for needs all the correct, you know, sort of paperwork, and then they'll be able to apply for you and set you up. So that's for the work permit and work visa. So yeah, if you're going to come to China, you're going to have to either end up teaching English, or you're going to have to find a very specific thing like that the Chinese people can't do. I think there are some sort of entertainment visas you can get as well, but I think it's pretty difficult to do. And of course, you know, you're just going to have to get in with the right company, and then you'll be fine. So guys, if you have any other questions about working in China, etc., please feel free to leave comments, and I'll try to answer them when I get the chance, or when I have proper access to YouTube. Thanks again for all the guys who sent me you know, different recommendations on how to get onto YouTube. I'm looking into all those things. I appreciate it very much, and I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.